Have you ever been in a match where literally everything is going wrong? Your lanes are losing, your team is already typing GG go next, and it feels like the match is over before it even really started. But what if I told you it's not? Because hidden inside Deadlock is something most players don't fully understand. A comeback system that can completely flip a losing game on its head. And honestly, if you know how to use it, you can turn what you should have been a guaranteed loss into a win. And in today's video, I'm breaking down exactly how the comeback mechanic works, how to abuse it, and how you can start turning losing games into victories. And if this is your first time at the channel, or you've been coming back on the regular and you haven't done so already, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, and if you find it helpful in, well, any way, shape, or form, make sure to like it. But that's enough about that, let's dive right in. Let's go ahead and talk about the real Snowball breaker. Now in Deadlock, kills aren't static. The game dynamically adjusts their value based on the state of the match. So when you're behind in souls, kills don't just help, they become the fastest way back into the game. Now, I think a big thing that most players don't understand is when you're losing, the game does two things at once. First, it increases the reward for getting eliminations or kills. The second is it compresses the lead the enemy team has. The second part is extremely key because it's not just you get more souls, it's the gap between teams shrinks faster than normal. Now, one thing that stems from this is the thing I like to call the one fight chance. Now, to elaborate a little bit more at what I mean, let me kind of make up a scenario. So let's say the enemy team has ahead by, 10 to 15k-ish souls. They're controlling the map. You feel like you can't walk up anywhere. Then suddenly you win one clean team fight with better macro decisions, better utility usage, and so on. What happens instantly is you get a massive boost in souls. You're likely to kill at least one high target value, so you get more souls from said player. You stop their map pressure, which allows you to gain more space to farm, and this also allows you to potentially secure different types of objectives like a comeback earn and so on. But I think there's one hidden layer that I think a lot of people don't expect. That one fight doesn't just give you base value, it removes their ability to keep extending their lead. So now their income pauses because, well, they're at the respawn screen, and your income spikes because you have boosted souls and you have all of the map access you used to not have. So instead of it being like a single swing, it turns more into a double swing. Now, in a game with this comeback mechanic, there's something I like to call the elastic band effect. Maybe you've heard it in some other places, but I haven't really heard it. This is how I like to think of it. You want to think of the game like a stretched rubber band. The more ahead a team is, the more tension that builds. One mistake, the snapback is hard. This is why a team that's slightly ahead can throw and recover quite easily. A team that's way ahead can throw and instantly lose control because the comeback system scales with a deficit. Now, you actually have to be rather careful when it comes to taking fights when you're behind. They hear, for the most part, kills are worth more when behind. So they start forcing fights constantly, taking 3v6s, diving randomly, coin flipping engagement, and it completely backfires. Because you have to keep in mind that the system rewards winning fights, not necessarily just taking fights. If you lose a fight while behind, you don't get the boosted reward, you lose more map control that you already had, you delay your comeback window, you might lose the mid boss, you might lose a guardian or walker or base guardians or shrines, and you're efficiently wasting the whole comeback mechanic. Then it comes to what actually counts as a good fight. So not all fights are equal, especially when behind. A good fight has at least one of these. A numbers advantage, you catch someone out, so maybe a 6v4 or a 6v3, a 5v3, and so on. You also have to think about cooldown advantage. Enemies use key abilities and you want to punish them immediately. If you know that a Wraith used their teleports or anything of that sort. You also have to think about positioning advantage. You fight on your side of the map, near cover, near objectives you can convert. And then you have to think about target priority. You're hitting the Fed carry, the high streak player, and the main damage source. You're going for the ADC in quotations when you think about a MOBA. Then moving along, you come to target selection, which is your maximum comeback value. If you're behind, who you kill matters a lot more than how many you kill. For example, your low value characters might be killing a 0-3 support or chasing a low impact target. You want to think about high value targets. These are your fed DPS characters, killing someone on a kill streak, or killing the player controlling the space. Now, there comes a point where it's the snowball flip moment or the momentum change. There's a specific moment in games where everything flips, and it's almost always starts with one high value kill because they go on a relatively long timer, so you have a lot more value. From that, it goes into one clean team fight, into immediate map control. After that, you're probably looking to take an objective, you can farm a lot more safely now with a boosted income, and you close the soul gap quite rapidly. And suddenly, that game that felt completely unwinnable is now, about even. Now, here's a little bit of advanced concept, I guess, and that's the delayed value of a kill. Now, you also have to kind of think that a kill or elimination isn't just worth souls right now. It also gives future farm access where waves you couldn't touch before. It also gives you objective windows such as urns, guardians, walkers, and so on. And it also gives you a tempo advantage. You act while they respawn. So when you win that fight while behind, the real value is immediate souls, future souls, and map control. Now, to flip the coin or flip the perspective, you want to think about why throwing one fight while ahead always feels so bad. A lot of people talk that the comeback mechanic might be a little bit strong, which is fair, but I think the comeback mechanic for a game like this is actually relatively cool, because for the most part, most MOBAs, if you get ahead, it's usually just a one-sided stomp. If you think about League of Legends, Dota, Smite, for examples, if you're ahead, it's just a giant snowball. But if you are the winning team and you lose one fight, you give boosted souls to the enemies, you lose a ton of map pressure, you allow them to farm safely, you might give up an objective, you're feeding directly into the comeback system. That's why as high-level players say, don't throw one fight, because one bad fight isn't just a mistake, it's a giant comeback trigger. When you're ahead, you're usually the outperformer of the underdog team, meaning the second you make one simple mistake in any fights, you miss time a cooldown, or you miss time an ultimate, or you missed an elimination on one of the, underdog carries, you're giving access to those people that slim chance and reason of hope to be able to get that comeback started. Now, I guess a real coaching takeaway in quotations is when you're behind, your mindset should shift from we need to fight more when you're behind to we need to win just one good fight that allows us the access to farm more, have a lot more map pressure, get our carries to where they need to be, and your game plan becomes stabilize first. You want to farm safely and not die. You want to wait for an opening of the enemy team. So that's looking for a misposition, you're looking for cooldown usage or overextensions. Then you want to commit hard when it appears. You don't want any hesitation. You want full team follow up on that specific pick or idea. After securing that said pick or elimination or whatever it may be, you need to convert it immediately. You need to take an objective, you need to push the map, and you need to farm everything. Now, if I can just give you one takeaway from all of this, if you remember nothing else, just try your best to remember this. When you're behind, the game is designed so that one good fight is enough. And the players who climb, they don't necessarily panic when they're losing, they wait, they recognize the moment, and they capitalize harder than everyone else in the lobby. And in the famous last words of Nick A30, never back down, never give up. Now moving on to our second section of the video, and if you haven't done so already, make sure to like the video, greatly helps me out. But it's the kill streak or the bounty system. So if an enemy is popping off and stacking kills, they become a walking jackpot. The longer their kill streak, the more souls they're worth when they're killed. This is called a bounty system, and it's one of those things that isn't necessarily labeled in the game, but it is a factor. At least I've been told by multiple people, and it's listed in some of the deeper dive guides, but there is a sort of kill streak system, so you have to be aware of that. Now, why exactly does this matter? Well, for example, let's say an enemy carry is A0. Take Venator, for example. Your team is behind. If you shut them down, you gain a huge soul injection. They lose tempo, so they're not farming all the time. So they have a death timer, and they have map pressure. The more souls they have in kills, the longer their death timer is going to be after 20 minutes. And again, their momentum got reset. One shutdown can equal multiple waves of farming, and the big thing to think about is that we can't kill their carry. It should be, if we can kill their carry once, the game is back on. One of my biggest tips I tell people is that you should be looking to play for a shutdown, not necessary desperation kills. You want to target the fed player with coordinated pressure, crowd control, and of course a numbers advantage. So even if you're worth sacrificing, say, a guardian, or I would say some HP of a walker, not necessarily a full walker, but if you're able to shut down that super strong player, you're reducing the amount of time they're allocating to farming. You're going to have a longer death timer, resulting in you possibly getting a walker or a mid-boss or whatever the case may be. Now, there wasn't necessarily a whole lot to talk about in Section 2, but in Section 3, where we have the passive soul boost, there's some things I want to highlight. So this is one of the most important and most overlooked mechanics, is when your team is behind, the game gives you increased soul income pretty much from everything. Think about waves, your troopers, neutral camps, your vaults, or what I like to call the sinner sacrifice, but I like to call them vaults, objectives, and the scaling works like this. The further you're behind you are, the bigger the bonus. It caps at about, I believe, 30% increased income, although it could be wrong, but it is around that number. And it fully kicks in at around a 10-ish net worth difference, 10%, because if you're down 10%, you get the comeback earn, so that is where I'm making that assumption. Then the first 3,000 souls difference is ignored. Now there is this kind of like 3k buffer for a reason. The game doesn't necessarily want a early game readiness to decide everything, so small leads equals no comeback boost, whereas big leads equal a decent comeback system which activates them. So in practice, what does this actually mean? If you're behind and you farm efficiently, don't necessarily die, and you collect full waves, you're actually gaining souls faster than the enemy team. Yes, faster. That means bad teams stay behind, but disciplined teams quickly catch up. The next major thing that stems from this is, well, the soul earn, which I talked about previously, and that's having an advantage earn or a disadvantage earn. Now, for the most part, the soul earn objective also dynamically shifts to help the losing team. So how does it work? If both teams are even, earn drop-off is neutral, so sidelines. If one team is behind, about 10% difference, earn moves closer to the losing team. So why exactly is this huge? Basically, you get a safer turn-in distance, you have less risk when securing the objective, and easier to defend after pickup. This turns the earn into a low-risk comeback objective for the losing team. But generally speaking, these are majorly contested as people play the game. Let's quickly talk about the strategic impact of this. If you're behind, the map is literally shifting in your favor. Objectives become easier to secure, the enemy has to overextend to contest you, and that overextension allows you for picks to go for those overextension picks. And when you're behind, you should really prioritize vision and control around earn, so you know when you can get that advantage earn better suited to your side. You want to force fights near your side. You don't want to overextend to take those, hopeful kills that don't really impact you as much, because you're overextending for one kill and then you just die, and then you're even further and further behind. Then you want to think about punishing enemies who walk too far forward. So again, punishing that overextension. So let's go ahead and put it all together and talk about the real comeback formula. When you combine all of this, here's what actually happens. If you're out behind but play correctly, you gain more souls per farm, you gain extra reward for kills, you can cash and shut down bounties, we have map advantage in key areas. So why do players still lose from behind? Because they do the exact opposite of what the system rewards. Fighting randomly, chasing low value kills, ignoring fire, dying repeatedly, and honestly just panicking. The correct comeback playstyle is, if you want to abuse the system like higher level players and pro players, you need to think about slowing the game down. You don't want to sprint into fights, you want to force the enemy to make mistakes. You want to farm everything safely because you are on boosted economy and you want to use it properly. Then you want to think about playing for shutdowns. One bounty kill equals a massive swing. And of course, you want to fight on your side of the map, especially around shifted objectives like earn. And you want to do your best to avoid deaths at all costs. Dying removes your comeback advantage instantly. You're no longer able to farm as much as you did, take certain fights the way you wanted to, and you just fall further and further behind. With all that said and done, what's the final takeaway? Now, the game isn't decided when you fall behind. It's decided when you don't understand the comeback system or fail to use it, because the truth is, Deadlock doesn't end games early. Players honestly do. And with all of that being said and done, hopefully this video has helped you in any way, shape, or form. Maybe it's given you an extra confidence boost to help shift some of your losing games into wins. Maybe that you learned something new here and there, but But that about wraps up today's video. If you like this type of content, make sure to hit that like button. Of course, subscribe to the channel if you're new. And if you want to see any other guides in this way or form, whether it's talking about mid-boss, buffs, or anything else, do let me know in the comments down below. Hope you have a great and safe day, and I'll catch you in the next one.